Hello, true believers. Welcome to another edition of BK's Bullets. My name is not Brent Cassina. My name is Jim Afanis, and from time to time, Brent asks me to review trade comics for him because he's trying to enlighten me, and I, in turn, am trying to enlighten the audience for the non-comic book person. That's my role in this world. Today we're talking to you about Batman White Knight. Now, every time Brent gives me one of these comic books, usually they come from the Golden Age or the Silver Age or from something long, long ago. This one actually came out between 2017 and 2018 under DC's Black Label, which piques my curiosity because as I did a little bit of research in preparation for this video, Black Label is a more mature-based comic book. I have always said that to me, DC Comics, the D should stand for dark, because when they are mature and gritty, that's when they really draw my attention. And this comic book definitely has a lot of those undertones. So I'm going to get into some of the story spoilers. So if you have not yet read Batman White Knight, save this video for later and come back after you've done so. I don't want to ruin it for you. I will tell you up front, in terms of a review, this is one of my favorite comic books that I've read by far, and it rivals my beloved Dark Knight Returns, which I still think edges it out just a little bit, but Batman White Knight was really, really good. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about the story, then give you guys a little bit of my impressions before I send you off on your merry way. Batman White Knight is a story about Joker turning back into a normal guy. The normal guy being Jack Napier. And I'm not sure if that is his normal name or if Joker's real name has ever actually been revealed. But in this comic, he takes this medicine which reverts him back into a normal guy. Now, everybody in the city really gobbles this up. Due to some extenuating circumstances, he's basically free and clear of all crimes. He's basically found to be a victim of the city, of Jim Gordon's poor leadership of the Gotham Police Department, and he is basically given a free pass to go off and to be just whoever he wants to be. And he immediately turns around and begins this elaborate plot to try to take Batman down. Now, he claims that the city has been in this really turmoil state because Batman has been running roughshod. There's really no overlay or oversight on what Batman does. And that Batman has a lot of these activities that really ruin the city. So driving his car through things and blowing it up, lots of collateral damage. But because Batman is a good guy and he always gets the bad guy, the city turns the other cheek, and Joker, now Jack Napier, really starts to set up this campaign, runs for this council office. He basically starts this new organization to try to bring in some of the superheroes. So Nightwing and Batgirl are brought in to kind of head up this organization, really trying to take Batman apart at multiple levels. You know, turn Batman's friends against him, turn the city against him. That's kind of his ultimate goal in this. And Batman, of course, you know, one step ahead of everybody else, even though he's villainized pretty much exclusively through this comic book, minus a little bit at the very, very end. He sees through all this and he's like, you guys are nuts. He does start to go, he being Batman, does start to go a bit more extreme in his, like, way of hunting down the Joker and really starting to be even more villainous, and I did like that. So what Sean Murray tries to do here, Sean Murphy, he's the guy who wrote it and penciled it and everything. What he really tries to do here is to sell a story in which their roles reverse. So Batman is now the bad guy, Joker / Jack Napier is now the good guy. And there's a lot of other ancillary stories here that kind of feed into that. One of them being that there's actually two Harley Quinns. There's a regular Harley Quinn who has kind of retired and gone back to normal life. And then this new Harley Quinn who takes over and just basically a fan of Harley Quinn and kind of becomes one of the main villains in the book. Her name being the Neo Joker. She kind of becomes the big bad at the end. And of course, as luck would have it, Batman and Joker have to put aside their differences one more time to work together to stop this new evil. And I thought it was a really good arc for everybody. In the end, Joker ultimately reverts back into himself. The medicine wears off. Batman, now troubled with the loss of Alfred, realizes that, he needs to be more open to the people that are close to him. And he really has this nice redemptive arc where he, at the very end, very reminiscent of the Batman movies, reveals to Jim Gordon that he is, in fact, Bruce Wayne. And he wants to turn another leaf for Batman. And he brings Nightwing and Batgirl closer into his family. And they bond over Alfred's death. And a very, very touching scene. Those are kind of the big notes of the story. There's some other stuff that goes on. There's some villains in there that, like Mad Hatter, trying to help control some of the other lesser DC villains, but that's really ancillary stuff. And, without going into a 30-minute video here on it, I'm just going to skip that stuff and say that it's serviceable to the story. What I really, really liked about it was I like that Batman is really exposed in this as being a crazy guy. And I've said this time and time again to Brent, to much disdain from him, that to me, the evil Batman is the best Batman. The guy who is lost his mind, absolutely crazy, not this beacon of light and hope, but just this crazy guy who is really, obviously doing the right thing and trying to help out in Gotham and to save his city, but really goes about it in a very destructive, self-destructive way. And it's almost cool to root against him sometimes. And I love that this story really speaks to me on that level, because throughout the story, you see everybody turning on him. And there's a scene where, he basically gets arrested by his old friends with, Jim Gordon putting out an APB to arrest Batman, and Dick Grayson driving around as Nightwing, wearing his Nightwing domino mask, but wearing this new uniform of this new police department, this task force. And a really cool scene where basically Batman gets arrested by his old friend, and it's just like such a traitorous moment for Batman. But I like that. I think that really, really sells itself well in the story. And I really like rooting against Batman in a weird way. The Joker arc of him turning back into a normal guy, I think I would have liked it more if it wasn't so on the nose that he was already up to the next big scheme. I think it would have been a little cooler if maybe they took their time and developed this over more stories. This is only 8 comics. To develop it a little bit more, so maybe it wasn't so clear to us that the Joker wasn't up to this villainous activity almost immediately. It felt like it was very like, okay, we're going to switch, we're going to jump right into this and get going. And I don't understand the circumstances behind what the DC Black Label's trying to do. I don't know if they're trying to cap their comic books to only 8 episodes, or if this was just what Sean Murphy decided to do. But I feel like had we got a little more depth into Joker trying to be much more normal before we immediately jumped into this, I think it would have made it more believable. The fact that they do take a lot of liberty in doing some major jump cuts in time, showing the city getting more and more frustrated with Batman as time's going on, that I think was serviceable. It would have been nice to see a little bit more of that, but I understand, you got to keep the story moving. And again, if there's only 8 episodes that they're trying to work with, jump cuts are going to make the most sense. I will say that I really, really like the art in this comic book a lot, too. It's a very, very unique style of art to me where, I don't know, Brent could probably explain it much better than I can, but it just had a very good tone to it. Everything was very believable. It wasn't hyper-realistic. It wasn't that goofy watercolor stuff that I've seen, especially with some of the Marvel Ultimate books that Brent has let me read. It had a very good comic book feel to it. Every character very, very over-the-top, expressive in their facial animations. There's numerous scenes where characters actually have like these saucers for their eyes, like their eyes are bugging out of their head, kind of like The Simpsons. And I thought that was kind of goofy, but it worked well. I'm just skimming through the book here, and everything just, it really sold. I almost feel like this was such a good comic book because without reading a lot of the balloons, I could really convey a lot of the emotion or understand a lot of the emotion that Sean Murphy was trying to convey to me just by their facial animations alone. And I think that says a lot for this. One gripe and something that I have noticed in other comics is everybody in this book has a very long, crooked Joker-like nose. Even Batman does. And I was a little frustrated with that because there were times I didn't know. I was like, wait, what is Joker doing in the scene? And it turned out it was actually Bruce Wayne or Dick Grayson. I thought maybe, I did talk with Brent about this a bit, but he assured me this was not the case. I thought maybe there was kind of like a subliminal symbolism thing going on here where everybody was looking the same except for Joker. Like everybody in the city had a long pointed nose. And I thought maybe they were trying to do this like overarching role reversal symbolism thing. But Brent says no, there's just a lot of artists who have a certain style. And I guess Sean Murphy has this pointed nose style. So maybe that was a little frustrating. And I think more than anything, I think that piece of the art is what really separates this from The Dark Knight Returns in terms of why I like The Dark Knight Returns even better, because I thought that art was just so good and it was consistent. As where sometimes I feel like the characters kind of morphed and looked kind of a little bit too similar than I thought that they should, and that was something I wasn't a big fan of. But art was amazing, story was amazing. I love the Batman design here. I love the look of Batman. I like the cowl with the collar on the side. I thought that was a neat touch. I like the story arc. I thought it was very redemptive. We had some major shocking moments. We had some really cool twists and turns along the way. So I have to give this a major endorsement. I think this was a really, really good comic book. And I'm really glad that Brent let me borrow it. I'd be curious to see what I get next from him. Hopefully it's more Black Label stuff because it was really good. And it's a nice change of pace from the Gee Whiz comic book stuff that we get where the villains don't really fight each other. They just kind of pass over each other, and due to these extenuating circumstances, the bad guy gets away. You see it all the time in the CW shows and Arrow and Black Lightning and The Flash where nobody ever really fights, as opposed to this comic book where it's very gritty, where Batman is sitting on top of Joker just wailing on him, punching him. You can feel every punch. The grand finale at the end where they all kind of ally up against the Neo Joker had some amazing moments in there too. So I was really, really happy for that. So the name of the book is The Batman. I'm sorry, not The Batman. Batman White Knight. Highly recommend it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, please consider commenting, rating, and subscribing to the BK's Bullets channel because it is some phenomenal stuff. And I'm sure that once Brent gets over this nasty bout, he'll be back to even more great content for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the funny pages.